Hi there, welcome to Equifit Club. I'm Jelaine, your host, and today we're going to be talking about how to poultice your horse's leg. So before we actually demo poulticing that horse's leg, I want to talk about the things and the items that you need to have with you before you start. You want to make sure that you have all your items and supplies before you actually put your horse in the cross ties or in the wash stall, wherever you're going to do this, so that you don't have them just standing around while you're scrambling around trying to pick up everything. So why would you want to poultice that horse's leg to start with? Well, there can be a number of reasons. There can be an injury, there could be swelling in the leg, but mainly if there's any kind of inflammation in that leg or in the hoof or something that you want to draw out, that is the reason why you would use a poultice. Now, there are times when you don't want to poultice. You definitely don't want to put poultice in an open wound. Okay, bad news. That's like getting salt or something and having it in a cut. Oof, that's bad. So, but there are different types of poultices now. It doesn't matter what kind you use. Sometimes I alternate different poultices as well, depending on what the injury might be. Now today, I'm going to be using a clay poultice, and this brand happens to be called Ice Tight, and it's a clay base. But I also use an Epsom salt poultice, which is good. And there are times when I might want to sweat something out of a leg, and I may use that Furacin ointment, or I could possibly use a DMSO gel. All of these things will pull or draw inflammation out of the horse's leg. But I want to make sure you understand that you do not want to handle some of this stuff with your bare hands. Definitely not DMSO, and definitely not Furacin. DMSO and those items can actually get absorbed into the pores of your skin, in which case I learned the wrong way. DMSO actually has gone through my glove at one point, so I double up on my gloves when I actually have to utilize that. You don't want your eyes dilating. That's bad news. So, in addition to the poultice, you want to have a pair of gloves with you. And it doesn't matter what type of gloves they are, surgical gloves, they could be latex, nitrile, whatever works well for you. I just happen to pick these up because they fit tightly on my hands. Okay, and if you've got nails or nail polish that you want to secure, you may definitely want to have a pair of gloves, because this stuff kind of get all in between your fingers and your nails. Okay, the next item that you need to have with you is going to be a set of quilts. Okay, I'm going to put a quilt on over top of that poultice, and I also need standing wraps to secure it. Now, standing wraps are a little bit different than polar wraps. Standing wraps don't have a whole lot of give in the fabric, where polar wraps are going to be a lot stretchier. So having a pair of standing wraps, and you only need one set unless you're going to be poulticing both legs or more than one leg. But if in a pinch and all you have is polar wraps, just make sure they're wound tightly and they're secured tightly. Because over a period of time, especially if this is going to be on overnight on that horse's leg, that can have a tendency to unravel itself or loosen itself, and you don't want the horse getting all tangled up in it. So a quilt, standing wraps, and now plastic wrap. Doesn't matter what brand, just some clear plastic wrap is going to do well. Now, I'm not going to use both the plastic wrap and the brown paper bag today. I'm going to demonstrate with just the paper bag. But in the event that you do use like a Furacin or a DMSO or anything else, even a poultice here, this is something that you can hand and you can have in your kitchen. Easy. I just happen to have brown paper bag that I got, from the grocery store. And I'll show you the reason when we take the brown paper bag off, when we unwrap his leg, why I really kind of like to use this. Now, the only issue with this is that I'm going to have to cut it. I need to cut the bottom part off of it. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to cut this part off. And as I'm putting the poultice on the horse's leg, I'm going to let this soak in this bucket of water. Okay, so it doesn't have to be drenched, but it does have to be wet. And it's wet because that way it sticks really well to the poultice that is on his leg. Now, I don't need all of this, because you see it's quite long, so I only really need half of it. Just enough that's going to wrap around the circumference of that horse's leg. So actually I can cut this in half again and just utilize one piece for today, and if I were to have to poultice again, say the next day, then I already have another sheet that I can use. So I'm going to take that, set that aside. I'm going to take this and just drop it in the water, and I'm going to let that soak. So today, my big red boy has done something to his leg, of course. So that's why I thought, well, we might as well shoot this video and show other people how to go about doing this poultice. So we're going to take all of our supplies and we're going to go get him, stick him in the wash stall, and we're going to put a little poultice on that leg and see if we can help him get rid of some of that inflammation that he's got. Come with me. Okay, so we brought out the big red horse and we're ready to go. Got gloves on, got all the supplies ready, and we're going to take a look. We're going to poultice this leg right here. And what he has done down here, I don't know, he did something out in the pasture, but right along here, there's fluid building up back here in this tendon sheath. So that's where I'm going to poultice. So I'm going to start my poultice to go from here all the way down the leg down to here. Okay, so now with gloves on, I'm going to take a big scoop of this poultice, and this again is the clay poultice, and you want to have it about maybe 1/4 inch thick. You know, you don't want it real thick, but at the same time you don't want it real thin. So I'm just going to slather this on, go straight down the leg following the hairs. And if you put it on too thin, you know, and then you go over, it'll start pulling it back off. So you just want to make sure you get a good, even coating right there. And again, like I said, you want to have about 1/4 inch. Now, I don't measure this. I just look to see, do I have pretty good coverage on it. Now, this doesn't sting. It doesn't have any elements in it that are going to irritate his skin a lot. But I do like to alternate the poultices just to give the skin a break. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get this nicely covered evenly around. That looks pretty good. Make sure you got the other side. I'm going to do a little bit more on the other side. And just for safety measures, make sure that you watch where you're putting your body as you put this on. I got a nice little bump with a knee one time, caught me right across the cheekbone. So I don't want to make sure I have my face anywhere near where it's going to get involved in his leg if he moves it. All right, so now we got a pretty good coating on there. And our next step is to apply the paper bag. So I'm going to get my paper bag that's been soaking. And you can see paper bag is nice and wet. And I'm going to start on the inside and just let that paper bag wrap around. I just sort of tap it down and let it hold on to the leg. Good. All right. Now, I can pull my gloves off. And my next step is to put my quilt on and then secure it with the standing wrap. You want to make sure that your standing wrap is wrapped the correct way so that when you unroll it, you have the Velcro in the right place. So I'm going to start by putting my quilt on. And again, I start inside here. and come around. And it's kind of the same direction that you use when you put polar wraps on. Then I'm going to lay the roll against his leg. And just like in the video that we use for how to put on polar wrap, remember that you always pull across the bone when you tighten. You never tighten across the tendon. Angle this. And it's a good idea that you try to get your revolutions about the same distance. Makes it real easy. I'm going to make my way back up the leg. And again, like I said, these standing wraps don't have a lot of give to them. I can pull them a little tight, just enough to make sure that it keeps the quilt in place. And I want to try to have about the same amount of quilt from the top as I do from the bottom. These quilts are just a little shorter with his leg. These tall thoroughbreds. And then I secure that. And I'm going to leave that on overnight. Now sometimes I may also wrap this opposite leg just to help give him a little bit of support. I won't necessarily poultice it since there's no heat or anything that's in there, but I may just give him a wrap on that other side as well. Now tomorrow I'm going to pull this off and we're going to take a look to see what it looks like underneath that wrap, and when the poultice has a chance to do its job and then dry. So let's check him again tomorrow and see what we've got. Now that we have unwrapped the leg, we see that the brown paper bag that we put on there is primarily dry. It's dried out. What I would be looking for here to see is if there are any wet spots or damp spots on the paper, because that's going to indicate to me that that's where heat is. But if it's pretty much dry all the way around, then good shot. Now all we have to do is unwrap the brown paper bag and then cold hose the excess of this poultice off of the leg, and we are done. Thanks for watching. Check out some more of our EquiFit videos. Leave a comment if you have some questions.